Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about this very important visit of Ms. Wendy Sherman. She is the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States of America, number 2 as far as the decision-making body of the Foreign Office of the United States of America is concerned. Now she was here and she's still here in Pakistan. She came on Thursday and held some very important meetings along with the NSA as well as the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's team in the Foreign Office. And interestingly, a lot of issues they've been discussed, whether you talk about the trade, you talk about the security, you talk about the regional peace perhaps. And then the recommendation from our side was that in order to improve the Pak-U.S. relationship, regular meetings should be held. International community should also engage the Afghan Taliban and also should recognize them. This was another proposal. Kashmir issue also came under discussion. And when you talk about the kind of support and help that Pakistan provided as far as the evacuation is concerned in Afghanistan, that was also hailed by the authorities of the United States of America. But before I introduce you to our panelists, our host of PTV World, Ms. Mona Alam, has had an interview with Mr. Wendy Sherman. Let's watch that first.
Welcome on board. Tonight on agenda we have Pakistan-US ties and the way forward, especially amid a transforming situation in the region under the Taliban rule, in particular in Afghanistan. And here on board I am joined by none other than United States Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, who's here in Islamabad on her maiden visit after being sworn in. Thank you, Ms. Sherman. It's indeed a pleasure. I'm honored to interview you for Pakistan television exclusively, and I'm grateful that you have taken out time despite your hectic schedule here.
Thank you very much, Mona. I want to start, even before we get to your questions, to express condolences on my personal behalf, but the behalf of my country, for the families of the 20 people whose lives were lost in the earthquake, and all of the families that are suffering from people that have been injured. Whenever these things happen in the world, it really is heart-wrenching for all of us, and I hope that there can be a swift recovery, and just wanted to pass on our condolences and our sympathy.
I'm very honored, and it means a lot. So your expression of solidarity to earthquake victims there in Balochistan, it indeed means a lot. Thank you so much to begin on this note, and rightly so. So, Ms. Sherman, to begin with, our agenda. Secretary Blinken has recently spoken about ties in the US, and since you've just been to India, I've also heard you state that at this point in time, you do not see a broadening of relationship between Pakistan and US. Is there a major realignment in the offing, and how do you see things moving forward? Because there are certain members of the power corridor there in the US who are kind of blaming Pakistan for the situation in Afghanistan.
You know, the interesting part of all of this is that the United States and Pakistan have had a long-standing relationship for decades. So the purpose of this particular trip was around the issues predominantly of the aftermath of Afghanistan. So that's what I meant about specific steps. And it was also, of course, to review where we are in our bilateral relationship and where we can work together to improve many things, not only in our bilateral relationship, but in the world together. But I think, as you pointed out, this is a time of great change in the region because of events in Afghanistan. And so I think we are all reassessing what is going to happen, how we all should respond, what the future will look like, and how to ensure that no country is a safe haven for terrorists, that the people of Afghanistan have a good future ahead of them.
Indeed, this is what they deserve. And Ms. Sherman, since Foreign Minister Qureshi met for Secretary Blinken along sidelines of UNGA, and this happens to be the highest level of diplomatic interaction between the two countries ever since President Biden has come in. I want to learn from you. Are there prerequisites placed on Afghanistan? Because Prime Minister Khan has often spoken about a necessary engagement that there must be from the US for Afghanistan, and also a probable humanitarian crisis that may emerge there in Afghanistan. So given all the apprehensions, what kind of engagement may we expect from the US for Afghanistan, and would they be conditioned to certain prerequisites?
Well, I think you know the answer to that because Secretary Blinken had a meeting with Foreign Minister Qureshi. The Secretary then said to me, please, on your next travel, go to Pakistan, that we wanted to engage and talk about the wide-ranging agenda we have and also about the aftermath of these events in Afghanistan. We're glad that Pakistan has called for an inclusive government in Afghanistan and that things should move forward in a way that create a better life for the Afghan people. And in terms of humanitarian assistance, we are absolutely agreed on that point. We want to make sure that the people of Afghanistan do not suffer. And the United States, in fact, has not only provided humanitarian assistance, but we have issued what is called a general license so that humanitarian workers through UN agencies, through INGOs, NGOs, can provide food and medicine and help to the Afghan people without worrying about U.S. sanctions.
Fair enough.
So I think the world completely agrees that humanitarian assistance is necessary, and we're very grateful that Pakistan feels the same way and has provided such assistance already to Afghanistan.
That's indeed heartening to know that the humanitarian crisis is a great matter of concern for the U.S. Moving forward, since U.S. has now come up with a Quad alliance and India happens to be a part of it, it was also believed that U.S. wants to prop up India against China as a regional competitor here. I want to know, in case of Pakistan-U.S. relationships, do you think it may kind of distort the balance between Pakistan and USA, given the propping up of India that we may have seen as a consequence of the Quad alliance?
Well, the Quad is what I think you were talking about,
Yes.
if I understand you. The Quad is a cooperative effort to work on things like energy and people-to-people exchanges and infrastructure and supply chain resilience. And it is one vehicle. We have a strong bilateral relationship with Pakistan. As I said, it's decades long in the making. And where China is concerned, as I've said to those I've met with here, we don't ask countries to choose between the United States and China. American companies invest in China. China invests in the United States. So China is a very large economy and a growing world power. What we do ask is that China play by the rules-based international order. And we urge countries to insist that China do so, so that everybody has a level playing field. We are happy to compete with anyone going forward. We just want to make sure there's a level playing field, and I hope that Pakistan, and I think Pakistan, believes that as well. Indeed, that rules-based international order has helped countries like China and Pakistan to develop because it has created a system in which everyone can rise.
Fair enough. Ms. Chairman, since you've just met the National Security Advisor here in Pakistan as well as the Foreign Minister, and you've emphasized twice about the deep relationship enjoyed by Pakistan and the USA. I want to know, do we see that going forward under the Biden administration? And also in the same continuity, how have your meetings been here in Pakistan?
My meetings have been excellent here in Pakistan. I had a very long and detailed dinner with the National Security Advisor. I had a very substantive and productive meeting with Foreign Minister. I will see General Bajwa over dinner this evening. And I also had an extraordinary opportunity to visit the UNHCR Drive Center, where smart cards are being produced for Afghan refugees and refugees in general, so that in fact they can get health services, their children can enroll in schools, and they can operate here in Pakistan. It's an extraordinary system, and Pakistan should be very proud of 42 years of helping Afghan refugees. And the United States is not only grateful, but the world is grateful for what Pakistan has done.
That indeed means a lot. Moving forward, since USA is helping Pakistan actively in its COVID vaccination program, and President Biden is a huge advocate, rightly so, across the globe of vaccination programs, will we see further enhancing of socio-economic terms between the two countries and also on trade levels? And this may also help us strike a balance between a relationship which is an economic one rather than a strategic alliance.
I think economics is important for all of us because after COVID, everyone needs to, as the president says, build back better. The world has changed, economics have changed, where the high-value jobs will be in the future have changed. We have COP26 coming up, which is to deal with the climate crisis. We are very commend Pakistan for making commitments around renewable energy, for Prime Minister Khan saying that there will be no new coal plants. We hope that Pakistan will make a new nationally determined commitment in this regard in front of contribution in front of COP26 that is bold and helps us move forward to getting net zero in our lifetimes.
As well as Kashmir, because you've been to India just now, Ms. Sherman, I'd like to know, since Kashmir still remains the flashpoint between the hostile neighborhood that India and Pakistan is, and the two nuclear-armed nations, I mean, they've had huge wars on this particular issue itself. Former President Donald Trump has also spoken about mediation in this regard. I'd like to learn from you, would we see some kind of reconciliatory efforts under the Biden administration, particularly between India and Pakistan, since of course this remains a flashpoint in the region and is a matter of great concern for peace and stability?
Understand the concern, and this has been a long-standing and complex historical issue, but this is indeed something between India and Pakistan, and the United States has, for a long time, urged dialogue between the parties.
Wonderful. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Ms. Sherman. I'm extremely grateful for your time. It's been an insightful talk, and I wish you a joyous stay here, a pleasant, safe travels, as well as I hope that your visit here in Pakistan should prove fruitful for the cooperation in two countries and also furthering the greater vision of peace and stability. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Mona. And I must note that you're wearing the pink ribbon for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And it says how interconnected we are in the world. I should have a pink ribbon on today as well. I would if I were in the United States. I should have thought to do it here in Pakistan. We are all more connected than we are unconnected as we face issues that confront all of us.
I'm indeed overwhelmed by your words. Thank you so much, Ms. Sherman. It's been a pleasure speaking to you and meeting you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And that was Mona Alam interviewing the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States of America, Wendy Sherman. This interview took place this evening. And now, as we speak, most likely she's having a dinner where the Chief of Army Staff, as she mentioned, will be there as well. A couple of important points that were discussed were about Afghan issue, Kashmir issue, about the kind of cooperation that Pakistan expects, and then the broad-based relationship. That is exactly what Pakistan is looking forward to with the United States of America. Now, a couple of interesting points. I mean, one point that really struck me was that whenever we talk about the Kashmir issue or the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, we always talk about the resolutions of the United Nations. But over here, when the lady said that this is a bilateral issue between Pakistan and India, means that they are exactly saying what the Indians normally say. They look upon it as an internal issue, and if they want to talk, they said they will only talk to Pakistan. So again, this was the kind of a support for the Indians when you look at that particular statement. But let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Dr. Mohammad Nawaz Nasser Saab, expert on foreign affairs. Thank you so much, Nasser Saab.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you on the show. And we have with us Air Commodore retired Basit RAZA Saab, senior analyst, also an expert on international relations. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And we have with us Ambassador ASIF Durrani Saab, senior diplomat. Durrani Saab is joining us on Skype. Pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your precious time as well. But let me start off from you. Nasser Saab, we were listening to what the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States of America was saying. She was particularly emphasizing, I'm talking about the question regarding the Kashmir issue. And once again, this is exactly what the American stance has been. which is in totally, it is in a conflict with what Pakistan wants. We want it to be sorted out through the resolutions or through the proposals in the United Nations. But over here, sir, the lady says that it's a bilateral issue between Pakistan and India. Perhaps they just shied away. And they are in fact saying what the Indians say. Let's start off from there. This is the actual bone of contention between Pakistan and India, and this is where the Indians kind of get some sort of a support from the Americans or the Western world. Let me put it this way. Your take, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Faisal brother, for having me in your show. First of all, taking opportunity in this venue, I would, my heart goes out to the victims of Balochistan, Harnai earthquake, as I belong to the province of Balochistan. And the recent bombing that happened today in Kunduz, Afghanistan, our heart goes to the victims of those families as well. And taking the opportunity here, Madam was wearing a ribbon of Breast Cancer Awareness Day, so we acknowledge that as well. Your questions are important. First of all, I would say this is a very important visit that she made, Deputy Secretary of Foreign Affairs, State from Biden administration. I think this is one of the top diplomat that has been visiting Pakistan, a high diplomat that has visited since Biden administration took place. So we welcome in a sense that we're having a situation here in the region, Southeast Asia and Pakistan and India and Afghanistan. I will elaborate a little bit upon on the issue that she is here, because it is sensitive to me and to every Pakistani and to the border area that as I live in the border area with Chaman, Balochistan. Afghanis are is going through a critical situations. Since the topple of the Western-backed government and now rising of Taliban, the crisis that we think it's coming is because there is the economy is collapsing, food supply is shortening, and jobs and wages are going away, slipping away. People are worried, and even there is an internal fleeing that I see is happening within the Afghanistan, not to the international border towards Pakistan. I think this is what the focus would be, rather than U.S. asking us that what to do more. I think we would ask for an humanitarian aid to the Afghan people and also economic relief for Afghanistan. I think this is the utmost importance that I would stress on, that should happen from the world and the world top countries like U.S., China, Russia, and all European countries that we have. Coming back to your question, yes, definitely. Kashmir issue is a core issue for us since the existence of Pakistan. Unfortunately, this has been an issue that U.S. not to forget that U.S. is a strategic ally with India, and I personally does not expect that they keep us in a balance. The needle is skewed towards India, way on the right there. And we are, we want them that, according to the U.S. resolution, they should look into, United Nations resolution would look into the Kashmir issue and resolve this, rather than shying us away, shading us away that this is an issue between India and Pakistan. No, it's an issue that international community should chip in and get into it and look into it according to the wishes of the Kashmiri people. And look into the atrocities that happened through the years and recent changes in the law that snatched the rights of Kashmiris, the 35A and the other 370. Definitely, this should be a look into it, and Kashmiris should be given the right to live and the right of freedom.
All right, now coming to you, Basit, first of all, so what do you make out? from this interview? Because nothing, I mean, when you talk about the content, that these were the major issues that came under discussion. Rather than, you know, bilateral issues were discussed, trade issues. I mean, what in trade or what regarding the bilateral? Because there is an absolute trust deficit that exists between Pakistan and the United States of America. Perhaps that is the key now. They scapegoat us for their failures in Afghanistan. This should have been asked. That why? Rather than the US dictating terms and conditions to Pakistan, which they have unfortunately during the last 20 years. Now this is the time that, you know, whenever you fail, whatever you do, why to blame Pakistan for that? I mean, we have been the frontline ally, the non-NATO ally. Look at the kind of sacrifices that Pakistan has given. 80,000 lives, over $160 billion of loss. Forget about the kind of fear that prevails in the minds of most of these Pakistanis. Look what happened in APs. I mean, there is so much.
Faisal, allow me to say
Please, sir.
that I would like to look into the milieu, the background in which Ms. Wendy has walked into Pakistan. Americans have had a policy of carrot and stick in dealing with developing and underdeveloped nations. But in case of Pakistan, the policy of present administration seems to be stick and stick. There is no carrot. And this is almost obvious reason is to please their Indian cohorts, because if they want to tighten the Pakistani side, the Indians get pleased, and that's what they are trying. And after the Afghanistan, their unceremonious departure from Afghanistan, there seems to be a schizophrenic response from them. Some of their politicians think that ISI alone single-handedly outmaneuvered CIA, MI16, Five Eyes and all the NATO eyes together. They give us too much of credit. So, and I think a very obvious symptoms of this malice is that they are not sort of admitting their own failure. They are scapegoating. And what measures the pressures applied to Pakistan, despite our efforts in extricating them out of the Afghan imbroglio, has been that we have not been allowed to get out of FATF, despite FATF, despite about 99% compliant. I think there are not many countries in the world would be
Only
that much
country,
compliant.
I think even in the history, if you look
That's
at the
right.
past also.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes, this is one of the IMF is exerting all sorts of pressure, increase the electricity rates and petroleum levies go down, and I mean gas, all subsidies have to go out. All these things are going there. President Biden has not called Prime Minister, despite our role in sort of helping them out of this crisis in Afghanistan, getting them a safe passage out of Afghanistan. So, and then their absolutely illogical demand that Pakistan should walk out of CPEC. Why? They are not
What
cognizant
about the
of
details of the CPAC, about the transparency of the CPAC?
So, if this is the mindset, if Ms. Wendy has come with this mindset, then there can be no substantive progress. But
Sir,
I hope.
I mean, obviously, if you remember when Mr. Clinton, the President of the United States of America, the former one, he visited India and then he came to Pakistan. And the kind of environment that prevailed, it wasn't great, because he came here to just to give us a message.
Browbeat, yes.
Perhaps it wasn't a friendly visit. So when you look at this particular visit, sir, you think there is any comparison? Is it more or less like that, though she is not the president?
Exactly. She is very soft spoken. She seems to be very, I mean, she is not that overbearing in her demeanor. But that ends there. In this interview, she did not give anything substantive. She did not show anything that they are offering to Pakistan. They have only demands. Their mantra is the same, do more. And I think if this mindset prevails, then Pakistan's response is very simple. We have already done more. Now it's your turn to
the
do
kind
something.
of attitude the Americans are showing to Pakistani government, perhaps it's not something that is going to bring these two countries close.
Exactly.
Rather, the differences would remain there, and they would keep on getting sort of separated in a way, the way we see it. So now we also have with us Asif Durrani Sahab. Durrani Sahab, from the diplomatic perspective, sir, from the world of diplomacy, first of all, you must have heard what Wendy Chamberlain said. Now, rather, when we talk about Wendy Sherman, sorry. The point is now, sir, that the lady was very, very particular about the choice of words. We talk about the imbalance in the Indo-Pacific region also. We talk about the differences between Pakistan and India, the kind of strategic alliance that the Americans have made with the Indians. It's perhaps a great threat to the entire region. And the kind of support, whether in terms of military intelligence sharing, use of their base, or BICA agreement in general, and the kind of support on the diplomatic front, on the military front, on so many other issues, and even on the Kashmir issue, sir, indirectly. She said it's a bilateral issue. So this kind of a support for the Indians, and again putting pressure on Pakistan and blaming and maligning Pakistan, and again scapegoating Pakistan, is a very clear-cut indication of what's brewing out there in their minds, in the Western minds, in the US minds, in the White House. How do you see this, sir?
Thank you, Faisal. Well, it's a big question, and I'll try to give you a short answer. That United States left Afghanistan not in a half. They negotiated for almost a year and a half when they entered into agreement with the Taliban, and then on 14th April, President Biden gave the schedule of withdrawal. They withdrew according to the plan. Of course, a couple of months extension they sought, and which was granted. Now, in this whole milieu, what I say from the diplomatic point of view is definitely, and Ms. Sherman has already said it in so many words in India, in Mumbai yesterday, that these relationships are actually narrow-based, and they'll focus, and it was quite clear, they want to focus on Afghanistan, and we should have no illusions about it. And we should also be very much clear that it is Indo-US relationship. They have entered a strategic partnership, and they are meant actually for the Indo-Pacific alliance, which begins from Wellington to Wagah, and they are not, and they are meant to counter China. We all know that. And if that is meant that they want to counter China, it means that India will have to do the American bidding. If that's the case, then tensions are going to rise. And if that's the case, then if the United States expects Pakistan to side with and be the second fiddle to the Indians vis-a-vis Indo-Pacific alliance, then I'm afraid, I think Pakistan's response would be quite clear to the Americans. Secondly, in Afghanistan, United States was cornered. I'm afraid I'm using this harsh word, but that is the reality on the ground, that in Afghanistan, it withdrew when Iran, Russia, China, they were unanimous for the withdrawal of the American troops. So geographically, Afghanistan's immediate neighborhood was against American presence in Afghanistan. Pakistan, of course, a window for the Americans, but that window was shut by the Americans themselves. Reason being that they want to run with the hare and hunt with the hound. They want to have a strategic relationship with India and have transactional relationship with Pakistan. I'm afraid that is not going to work. And it was precisely this India factor in Afghanistan, actually, because India had opened the second front for Pakistan in Afghanistan and using the Afghan soil against Pakistan by propping up the TTP and Baloch dissidents. So it also worked against Pakistan's interests, and that was India. And Americans knew it. Americans also knew it, that they were giving, the Indians were giving money. Actually, the Americans, they got hold of one fellow, I won't take his name on openly, in 2008, and they, in fact, the Americans got hold of that fellow, and they knew it, and they did not reprimand the Indians, and it was, money was close to $6 million in banks. So these are the issues that United States looked the other way. And for them, Al Qaeda was a menace. That was a problem. For them, ISK is a problem which actually took roots when Americans were there. In fact, they took roots only 10 years ago. Before that, there was no presence of ISIS or Daesh in Afghanistan. It happened under the American watches, and for them, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi and Lashkar-e-Taiba was a menace, but for them, TTP was not a menace. For them, the Baloch dissidents to a BLA, they were not a menace. Now, this is something, a double-faced policy, which Americans were running in Afghanistan. And if through that prism they want to have a relationship with Pakistan, then I'm afraid this would be a one-sided relationship. And you may have seen Foreign Office's statement in which Foreign Minister clearly talked about the plight which people are facing, the humanitarian crisis they are facing. Those need to be addressed, and Afghanistan's frozen accounts are to be unfrozen. That is also very much in the statement issued by the Foreign Office. So, in a way, she has come here, and she has come here after 9 months. I mean, any senior American official has visited Pakistan after 9 months of Biden administration taking over. So this also is a commentary, and it's a sad commentary in a sense that we have been partners. We have been partners just not after the 9/11. We have been partners when the Soviet troops entered Afghanistan. We have been partners when there was Cold War, and throughout and throughout. Either we were the most allies of the ally, or we were the most sanctioned ally. So this has been the kind of a relationship which we had with the United States. So we should not be surprised. Yes,
All right. All right. Now, coming back to you, Dr. Nawaz, now another important, rather very important issue is about the future of Afghanistan. So, because at the end of the day, this is going to determine about the peace process, about the economic prosperity, about CPEC, BRI. I mean, there is so much related to it. Looking at what happened in Kunduz today, sir, and then the earlier issue, there was another bombing in Jalalabad. Prior to that, there was another at the airport, killing so many civilians, so many innocent people. That issue was highlighted primarily, and it remained in media for some time because there were 13 US servicemen also killed in that blast. Otherwise, honestly, they don't even care about the rest of those 200 people who also perished, right? They would only concentrate on the 13 lives because they were the white men of their origin, right? So perhaps they do not have any interest about the well-being of the Afghan people. Let me be very honest. Otherwise, why would they freeze these accounts? Why would they not help Americans? They throw away their wheat and rice and so much more of their produce just to maintain the prices. Why not to send that to Afghanistan, where people are practically dying because of hunger, sir, and the winter has almost approached. Now, looking at that kind of a situation, sir, where they still want Pakistan to do everything, looking at what Pakistan can and what Pakistan cannot, again forcing us, blaming us, not trusting us. Do you think this is the right way forward, right approach to move on? And when we hear our own foreign minister, Mr. Qureshi, that most of the ideas regarding Afghanistan and when it comes to Pakistan or the American mindset, it's almost the same. Is it the same? I don't think so, sir.
I think what you're saying is the Americans are now saying that do what we say. I think that's the change that I have noticed. And I mean, she came in today, Madam Secretary. We don't know much about her visit and her negotiation and talks with the diplomats. But what I say is, I'm not sure if she has asked for an airspace or bases. That's a commonality that people use.
So there is this very interesting story. I'm not sure whether how much credible that writer is or not. But I think this settlement has been done during her visit in India, that most likely India is going to offer them the air base. And as far as the airspace is concerned, that is where the problem would be. But do you think Americans would need your approval to use your airspace?
Not really. But I think they need the airspace. That's why there's no mention in the talks that I've heard. The thing is that what the condition that U.S. asked Pakistan do not recognize Taliban government. Number two, or do not urge or do not be in a hurry to do that. Number two, combat terrorism. And number three, to not to engage with the TTP in Pakistan. So those are their conditions. What I think is what I look at is like, as you mentioned, the situation in Afghanistan. The humanitarian crisis is overwhelming, and it's going to be escalating as the winter approaches. I was reading there that the Afghanis can only withdraw 20,000 Afghanis per week. That's how they have the money access, and remittances are zero, which most of the families based on, and the inflation is
rising,
sky high, and it's rising. Flour, it is I think 20 kg bag is 1,400 rupees in Pakistan.
1,400.
Yes, and it is 2,600 rupees in Afghanistan today.
Almost double.
Almost double in Pakistani rupees. So this was not then when the Ghani government was there. So this is the situation we are facing. It is alarming, it is heartening, and I think humanitarian aid, like I said before, is important, is must, along with economic relief to Taliban. And I think we should push, and Pakistan should push to recognize them in a sense of helping the people of Afghanistan.
Now, you can do what is in your capacity, but Basit Sahib, you can't do more than that, unfortunately. But I think because the kind of situation that has developed over a period of time in our neighborhood, I would say, sir, that's very, very alarming. Forget about the LAC or the LOC issue or the conflicts or the skirmishes going on out there, but when you talk about Afghanistan, sir, it's a serious problem. And if this problem continues, so the fallout factor is going to be inside Pakistan, sir. That is for sure. Now, how to make sure that we can sort of keep ourselves away from that, yet be involved in a way that we stay away from the fallout factor and yet be productive? Are we following that kind of line, sir?
Yes. I think that best for Pakistan, the best thing is to sort of create a regional consensus approach.
That is already there, sir.
That's right. But that should be implemented. China is a very important player of that. But China has not stepped forward. Still, it's operating from safe limits. So that's what perhaps Pakistan is waiting. Although,
sir, whatever is happening in the South China Sea, the making of Quad, she said it is a cooperative group. What sort of a cooperation are they up to? That is a separate story. So that is primarily to counter China.
Right.
Then you have this AUKUS, the
yes.
white man group against the Chinese.
True.
And then you have the LAC issue. Then you have the Taiwan issue.
Yes.
And we all know what happened on the 1st, and then the day after tomorrow is the so-called the Independence Day of Taiwan, the 10th of October. And then you talk about the LAC issue, and then comes the Afghan issue. Do you think, sir, when it comes to the priority for the Chinese, is the Afghan issue among the top three or the bottom three?
For China, Taiwan is their top priority because they think it's their part. But although now there is going to be a virtual meeting to be held between
these 5 countries.
The Biden and
okay,
Xi
regarding
Jinping.
China, okay.
So Chinese have made it clear that they are not going to attack Taiwan. So America has reiterated that they believe in one China policy. So that
they
is
do, but they don't actually implement that policy.
Exactly.
So that's
From
the problem.
within their own premises, they are doing everything against
There
it.
you go.
But this is what the public stance is for the time being, just to make
Why
this
would they
meeting.
send their 2 of their own aircraft carriers along with one of the British, right?
That's
What's
right.
the point, having them close to
Exactly.
this area? Yeah?
And one of their submarine actually got damaged. I don't know what hit it in the South China Sea. That's something very strange. So all these things are happening. But I would again say that Pakistan is in a very difficult situation because whatever Pakistan cannot sort of close its eyes. Whatever happens in Afghanistan directly affects Pakistan. And if the Afghan crisis deepens, as it seems to be deepdening with every passing day, then its fallout would be that the people would actually rebel inside, and they will actually cross borders, and they will try to spill over into Pakistan. And I am very sure that Ms. Wendy, this is a talking point for her, that America has been pressurizing Pakistan to accept refugees, something on the scale which we did
In 1979.
That's right. And look at them, how many Afghans they have taken. They are in thousands, and they are all scattered. Some of them are in Albania and this
Some
countries
in
like
UK,
that,
a few in- yeah.
and their documents are being processed. Have a heart. You have put them in an aeroplane and brought them outside out of Afghanistan, and you are still processing their documents.
So,
and
extreme
tomorrow you
vetting,
find,
this is what they say.
and tomorrow you find that they are not fit to come to USA or Britain. Then where do they go? They have left their country, they have burnt their boats, and they are now caught in no man's land. So this kind of dichotomy and this kind of, as I said, schizophrenic responses, which are not logical, will not lead anywhere. And Faisal, I would again repeat that Pakistan has to play it very delicately, and the only salvation for Pakistan is to have a consensus of the regional players, and only then, if we have that regional approach with two strong nations, China and Russia, part of it or supportive of it, Pakistan can succeed in sort of getting a succor for the Afghan people and a relief for them. And that goes in the interest of Pakistan as well. This is a moral standpoint of view, this is what we want. And also from our national security, vital security interest point of view, it's important that the peace should return to Afghanistan. There should be no further violence. There should be no further people dying of hunger and due to internal conflict. So this is what Pakistan has been
And
trying.
exactly so, when the Taliban, they took over the Kabul on the 15th of August, that's almost round, let's put it this way, a little
7,
less
8
than
weeks.
2 months.
2 months, yeah.
Honestly speaking, sir, initially there was not even any killing going on, except for the bombing, and then it started, and then there was this drone strike in which civilians were killed, and then another bombing, and then this Kunduz bombing, and that also in a mosque. So that tells you the story that what exactly is going on out there. So why would a Muslim kill another Muslim?
Yeah.
Sometimes they end up blaming Daesh, sometimes IS, sometimes Al-Qaeda, God knows what and what not. But the point is that this is not the job. I mean, there are puppets and then there are puppeteers. You need to go after the puppeteers, and they also know, and we know who the puppeteers are, who really want Afghanistan to be destabilized. Now, sir, last question coming to you, Ambassador Saab. So it's believed generally that in diplomacy, the more friends you make and the number of enemies you decrease as far as your international policy is concerned, that is the real art of diplomacy. But sir, there is a lot of complication in various issues as well. Now, when we talk about improving our relationship, obviously, sir, the strategic alliance is with the Indians, so it can't be that kind of a supportive element out there for Pakistan. But having said that, the question is that in diplomacy they say that if you have the right cards in your hand and you play them wisely, there is a high probability that you will achieve your objectives. But sir, looking at the current situation, I'm not sure what sort of a hand the Americans have and what sort of a hand the Pakistanis have. But do you think, sir, if it's a reasonable hand, we can play the cards wisely, sir? Or you believe that it's a loser's choice that we have in our hand, sir?
It depends on how you look at it. Right now, I think Pakistan has played the cards very deftly, and that is that it has adopted the approach. There is a consensus within and Prime Minister Imran Khan in interview with Johnson said very clearly that we will not recognize Taliban alone, but the immediate neighbors of Afghanistan. During their meeting in Doshambe, they took a unanimous decision to recognize Afghanistan collectively. So this regional approach actually should, in a way, should be a signal to the United States that now it cannot have it alone, and United States cannot dictate its terms. Now, if Afghanistan is insulated from external interferences and the spoilers are kept at a distance, then again it's a win-win for Pakistan and, of course, regional countries. And for the first time now, it's down Russia, sure the part of the nexus with India during the Taliban's first tenure are now, in fact, on a different tangent, and they are with Pakistan. China is there, and Pakistan's relationship and strategic partnership with China is a source of strength for Pakistan. So, if you have a strong regional policy, which now I think Pakistan is heading for, so that's very important. And I think then if you have strong regional policy, then you don't need a rise for field. And therefore, I think we should be confident that if we have peace in the region, especially on the western side, and so then I think United States will think twice, and especially when the United States is alone in this region. And then again, if United States wants to be part of this region or have to say, only Pakistan is available because certainly it will not go to Iran. It won't have positive answers to any questions, or for that matter, the China. They have entered into a competition. So I think Pakistan's relevance is very much there, and they cannot. So that's how when you say you have to play your cards deftly, this is
All right, sir.
yes.
All right, Ambassador, thank you very much, sir, for your comments, and thank you very much for your presence in the show, sir. And it was always a pleasure, sir, to have you, Ambassador, and thank you so much, sir,
Thank
for
you
your
for
presence
having
as
us.
well. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you, inshallah, on Monday at 8:05 p.m. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz, and have a great weekend.